What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of How to Scale an Agency. I'm your host, AJ Quesada, co-founder of Revenue Boost, where we help agencies get clients through cold outreach. And today, I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with my good friend, Chris Martinez, who is the founder of Bloom. Bloom is a management consulting company that helps agencies increase profit, scale, and eventually achieve an 8-figure exit. So today, Chris and I are going to be talking about what it takes to actually build a business that you can eventually sell, and really the mindset shift around that, along with some of the tactics and best practices and everything he's observed from working with tons and tons of agencies to help them grow, scale, and add value. So really looking forward to this. Also, Chris is hosting a really cool mastermind event this December in San Diego. So at the end of the podcast, he'll share some details about that. I think it's really cool. All you guys should check that out and go if you can make it to California, if you want to connect with in person with some other awesome agency owners crushing it, doing cool things. So we'll share about that at the end. But anyways, welcome to the show, Chris.
What's
Stoked to have you
happening?
here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. So
Yeah, man.
is it late for you or is it early for you? Because it's 7 a.m. for me on the West Coast.
Oh, so you're up early. Yeah. It's
Oh yeah.
late. Are you normally up early?
Yeah, I'm like a 4:30 a.m. type of
Oh
guy.
man, you're one of those.
Well, I'm a morning person in general, right? Like I
Yeah.
didn't read the book and then like I gotta wake up early and like do my ice bath and all that crap. Like
Do my ice bath, do my
I just
smoothie.
naturally wake up early. So
Yeah,
but I get like 4.
for sure. No, I love waking up early. I don't anymore because now I'm in Asia, but when I'm in the US, I do also like just getting up early. I like the quiet up just before everyone's awake. But no,
Oh
it's
yeah, for
9
sure.
9 p.m. over here, but I've saved my last 3 to 5 brain cells for this interview, so we're all good for today. I'll still
Perfect.
get some juice left in me.
Perfect.
But yeah, man, before we get into some of the awesome stuff you've learned and can share about building an agency and selling agencies, I would love to know kind of like how you got started this. Like, how did you found Bloom and just get your
Mhm.
start as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go back to my very first business that I started. I mean, like legitimate business. So my dad died of cancer in 2007, January 2007. And then after that, I got the inspiration, say stupidly, to start a soccer magazine. So back then, it's 2007, right? There were still these things called magazines. There was still paper. And I got
Paper.
the idea that I wanted to start a print soccer magazine. I didn't know anything about print publishing. I was always a good writer and I loved soccer. I've been playing for almost 40 years. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to try and start this magazine. And long story short, I made every single mistake that you could possibly make. I failed miserably. I lost all my money and then some. I was in debt.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot from that experience, to say the least. And so fast forward to around 2009, I learned how to build my first website. So prior to this, prior to 2009, I had no interest at all in anything digital. But I needed a website for a little like idea that I had. And my friend said, hey, like, just figure it out. Like, he built this website for his girlfriend at the time. And I saw down at the bottom that it said powered by WordPress. I don't know if you remember this or not, but like there used to be a sidebar. And then at the bottom, there would always be like a search box. And then it would say powered by WordPress. And so I asked him, what was this WordPress thing? And he's like, oh, it's this platform you can build websites on. And I was like, oh, can you help me? He's like, just figure it out on your own. And I remember I was so pissed at him for not helping me, but it ended up being like the best thing ever. So I ended up having to figure it out, and I got a theme and I learned how to build my first WordPress website over the course of a weekend. And then that led into building more websites. And then that led to me learning about traffic and digital marketing. And I hired a coach at the time. So most people know Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels. Well, way back then, he had another company called .com Secrets, and it would teach you about internet marketing. And primarily it was like affiliate marketing back in the day. So I hired his company. I had a coach and he taught me about driving traffic and all this stuff. So that led me into a job where the whole time I'm doing this, I'm moonlighting, by the way, trying to pay off my debt.
Mm.
And so that led me to a job where I was a salesperson for this company called Reach Local. They did PPC management. They've been bought several times, but at the time they were a big deal. They had developed a auto bidding technology that for PPC. And it was like revolutionary. So I started working for them and they didn't do websites. And so that's where I got the inspiration. I was like, hey, I could start a web design agency. I didn't even call it an agency. I started a web design company. And so I launched that in 2012. I had a little team in the Philippines. I had 2 partners at the time. And I was moonlighting, working at this job. Eventually that led to another job where I was an online ad manager for a couple newspapers in Los Angeles. And still moonlighting with the agency. And then the newspaper that I was working for, they were downsizing because the revenues were falling. Like online ad revenue was up, print revenue was down. I was the last person there. Plus, I hated it, and I think they hated me. And so I got the axe, and then I was like, that's the sign that I'm going to do my agency full time. So this is
Mm.
2013, end of February 2013. I started doing my agency full time and just scraping by. Like the company was really, really small even after that first year, and so I think my salary was maybe like $3,000 a month or something like that. And I don't come from money, like I don't have rich mommy and daddy, so I had to figure it out and just renting a room basically, like to try and pay for my bills and stuff like that. And obviously I'm focused just on growing the agency, and so it's growing, and of course my salary is increasing as well. And I wasn't rich, but I was making it, right? End of 2013, I moved to San Diego, and then fast forward to 2015. And if you know the geography, I mean, I think you know the geography, but if there's somebody watching or listening who doesn't know the geography, San Diego is on the border of Tijuana, Mexico. And so I had the idea, 2015, hey, I bet you I can find people in Tijuana as opposed to going to the Philippines. Because at that time, the time zone was killing.
Right.
Just like
Yeah.
you're on 3 to 4 brain cells, I was staying up till like 1 o'clock in the morning, like every single day. My schedule was
Mm.
like 6 a.m. to 1 a.m., like every day. And I just recognized like I didn't want to do that anymore. Maybe I can find people down in TJ to help me build my agency, right? To do design and development and all the other things that we were doing in the agency. So I go down there, I set up a company, and I think I was one of the first digital marketing agencies to set up shop down in Mexico. And back then, it was really hard to find talent, and it was really hard to pay them. And ironically, they did not know about WordPress. They knew how to do development, just not on the WordPress platform. So we ended up finding people and training them. And then I grew my agency. We had 200 and something clients on retainer. And now we're at like 2017. And I was like, okay, I don't really like running this agency anymore. I have these amazing people. I heard this podcast of Russ Perry, who started Design Pickle. Are you familiar with Design Pickle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
So I
certainly
hear
started
Russ's
from.
model. He's like unlimited design. And I'm like, I wonder if I can do unlimited development for marketing agencies. So I kind of copied his model, and we start running ads on Facebook to try and get our first few clients. And it was like super cheap pricing, like $500, unlimited design and development, right? And so we started getting clients. And so this is April, I think, of 2017 when we started doing by December, we'd gotten to around like, I don't know, 12,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue, which was, I mean, at the time it was pretty quick growth. And so we got a booth at the Traffic and Conversion Summit in San Diego in 2018. And that was a big investment. It was like 10 grand all in when you consider, the booth and the booth stand and all the other crap that we had to go into it. We
Mm.
were into it about 10 grand. So we go to that event, and it blew up. I mean, we got like 400 grand in revenue from that one conference. It was pretty crazy.
Wow.
We had a really good offer too. And of course, that led to more referral business and da da da. That's how I came up with the 400 grand number. And so then dude started to grow like crazy, and we had to hire everybody and just like all kinds of stuff. And then 2020, COVID happens. Actually, let me take a step back. 2019, we'd gotten to like 900 grand in revenue from Dude, the outsourcing company. And but we weren't very profitable. So again, I reached out to Russ, and he was having a little like coaching thing, and I paid him a bunch of money, and he taught me how to run the business by the numbers. And that was a game changer because he showed me his numbers. And I saw, for example, that my cost of goods and his gross margin, his cost of goods was the same percentage as my gross margin. So
Mm.
like I was completely upside down. I was completely flip flopped. And I'm like, well, this is why I'm not very profitable. So, and he showed me like this financial planning tool that he got from somebody else and that he used to grow Design Pickle. And I was like, wow, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And so we started making the changes in the business to become more profitable. Well, 2020, COVID happens, and overnight we lost 18% of our revenue. So we have to go back to this financial planning tool that we use and revamp the whole company and figure out how to survive. And long story short, 2020 ends up being the most profitable year that we ever had. That's the year that we broke 7 figures in revenue, super profitable. We kept growing. At our peak with Dude, we had over 100 employees. So I've done a lot of hiring.
Mm.
And I learned a ton doing that. And so fast forward, now we're looking at 2022, and we start to see, well, one, our clients started asking us not just for design and development support, like the outsourcing stuff, they started to ask us, hey, how do you run a profitable company? Can you teach me that? How do you create SOPs? Because you guys are amazing at that. How do you keep churn down? Because you guys are great at that. How do you hire and staff, of course, like not just these people, but everybody. How can I train people to be more proactive and help me run the company for me? And so we ended up picking up a client, our very first consulting client. He says, I don't want anything to do with the outsourcing stuff. I'll just pay you guys $5,000 a month to help me run the business more effective. So we're like, this is kind of outside of what we do, but whatever, let's give it a shot. And it went really, really well, and obviously much more profitable. So
Right.
that was one thing. And then we also started to see a shift in the outsourcing model. And we started to recognize that the way that Dude operated is you would have an agency and they would need a person. And Dude sat in the middle. So the agency would pay us, and then we would hire and train the person, and they would be on our payroll in our Mexican company. And then those two would work together, and we would just be in the middle, right? Well, and we can talk about this more if you want, but that model just doesn't really make sense anymore. Essentially, there's new technology out there that replaces what we do, what we did. So I was like, this is a dude killer, like this
Right.
technology that exists is going to make our business irrelevant. So we took all these things, and we're like, the final piece of it was like, it's way more fun to help these businesses grow. Like helping doing the staffing is cool, but if we can help them scale the business and start doing millions and millions of revenue and millions of profit and help them do an exit, that's really freaking awesome, And so that's basically when earlier this year, when we were like, hey, this is the new direction of the company. This is what we're more passionate about. And then we did the rebrand in July. We say that Dude had to grow up. And so we came up with Bloom, and it's been going well ever since.
What a journey. Yeah, I love how it started organically. I think it was similar to the story I shared about our cold email agency on your podcast, how agencies were just asking me like, how are you getting clients? And it just one thing led to another. So
Yeah.
that's always cool, right? When you just kind of something is just born out of a need and it wasn't really what you were thinking about. That's why I find it sometimes hard when people ask you like, what's your 5-year plan, 10-year plan? Because you don't know like how things are gonna go. I'm curious to get your perspective because I know planning is big for you, and I know that's something
Oh,
you're
yeah.
talking about at your conference. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Like the balance
Yeah, I was
between both?
literally just working with an agency yesterday about this, and we were talking about their 10-year plan, right?
Mm.
And so plans are notorious for not working out the way that you had
Right.
expected. However, there is value in the plan in setting up a trajectory and like objectives along the way. If you have to
Right.
pivot and go a different direction, that's okay. That's going to happen. But it's very hard to build a successful business, no matter what that business ends up looking out, without some sort of plan.
Yeah.
You need to have some end goal. Even if you're going to end up changing directions, there's value in having the plan.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Just the thinking process you go through, right, to create the plan just
Mhm.
really helps you kind of distill down, again, the objective, the milestones, what it is you actually want, how you're going to get there, all that. So
Yeah, it can
yeah.
be a little bit frustrating for certain people who don't like the ambiguity. I would say, like as an entrepreneur, you have to get very comfortable with the uncomfortableness, ambiguity, and kind of not having the certainty of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what's going to happen, but you're going to go forward anyways. Like you're
Mhm.
going to be afraid, but you have to go forward anyways. That's just what you signed up for as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so the plan can serve as a North Star, but then you're also learning as you go. And so you might change direction, and that's okay.
So what would you recommend to, let's say, an agency owner listening who doesn't really do much planning? Maybe they have like weekly goals and tasks, right? But like, what kind of structure do you follow? Is it like weekly, monthly, yearly? I mean, you said you help
Mhm.
people create a 10-year plan. So how does someone get started with that?
Yesterday was a little bit different because they're already doing a couple $1 million a year.
Right.
And it's ironic because like we have these checklists that we know that if you're at a different stage in the agency, these are the things that you have to have in place to be able to get to the next stage. So there's 5 stages. I'll just give them to you. So
Yeah.
there's launching, there's validating, there's developing, there's professionalizing, and there's exiting, right? Those are the 5 stages that we've identified. In order to get to, if you're at launching, in order to get to the validating stage, there's, I don't know, I'm just going to go off the top of my head. There's probably like 15 to 20 things that you have to check off of our checklist that will then signal that you're at the next level. You essentially have to become the business, and you as the agency owner have to become the agency owner before you actually get to the level. I hope that makes sense. So at each stage, there's a number of things that you have to do on this checklist that will enable you to get to the next level. The agency that I was working with yesterday, they're in that developing slash professionalizing stages. Like they're kind of like on the cusp in between the two of them. And so for them, it is very beneficial for them to have a 10-year outlook. At the very least, though, you need to have a 1-year plan, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're starting out, you need to have a 1-year plan. So what I like people to do is I like them to start and take an inventory of what's going on now, right? Just really dive into like what's going on. What does the team look like? What's the revenue look like? What are the things that are going well? What are all the things that are going poorly, right? Let's take inventory of that. Then let's map out 12 months from now. What do we want the business to look like? If everything went well, what would the business look like? And you write all this stuff down. You're writing this down, by the way. You write all this stuff down 12 months from today. So it's October 1st, 2024. So let's just say October 1st, 2025, everything went according to plan and I got everything I wanted. What would the business need to look like? Then after you have that, you go back and you say, okay, so here's where I want to be in a year. For that to be possible, what needs to happen in the next 90 days? And you do a 90-day plan and you write all
Mm,
that out, right?
mm.
Then the final piece of this, and this is like the most important, is you go back again and you say, here's today, October 1st, 2024, and here's where I want to be January 1st, 2024. What needs to happen week by week for me to be able to hit all of those goals? So you're essentially mapping out just a very clear 90-day plan, right? We know where we want to be in a year. We know where we want to be in 90 days. Now I know what I need to accomplish every single week from now until January 1st, right? That's something that everybody can do. Does not matter the stage of business that you're in. You can all do that.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a super simple framework to follow. So really clear vision for the year ahead. Obviously, everything's not time bound because there's just more, hey, this is where we want to end off. But the
Mhm.
next 90 days, they're very breaking it down by the week in terms of this, what we're doing week over week to get to 90 days.
Essentially, yeah, it's a 90-day. You break it down into 90-day chunks.
Mm.
You've heard things like, it takes 21 days to create a habit or whatever. Typically, 90 days is the furthest out that somebody can plan.
Yeah, because of things that'll change, or how do you
Things
mean?
that things that'll change, and also
Yeah.
just distractions. Like it's really really hard to stay focused on a goal that's more than 90 days out.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is, yeah, we all can relate to shiny object syndrome, right? I know it's really rampant in our space, especially. But I
Yeah,
think for me, this is what helped me get rid of shiny object syndrome, is because I think when you don't have a plan, you're just randomly doing stuff and making money or
yeah,
whatever. You don't really see the cost of taking on that new project or new client that maybe you shouldn't take on, or that shiny
hmm
object. But when you have a plan, it's very clear that, hey, if I take on this, then it's gonna pull me away from this, right? So I think it becomes
yeah.
easier to have those guardrails.
Can we talk a little bit about the shiny object syndrome, by the
Yeah, for
way?
sure.
Because it's something that I've learned that it really pisses me off now, actually. So when we look at common traits amongst our agency owners that are doing very well financially, I mean, talking multi-million dollar businesses and also very, very profitable, and they're making a
Mm,
ton of money. All right. Having discipline is one of the common traits that we see amongst those agency owners. Unfortunately, that commitment to discipline is kind of rare in our
mm.
industry.
Yeah.
Why is that? Starting a marketing agency has zero barrier to entry, right? It's not like going to become a surgeon where you have to go to school and you have to pass a bunch of tests and you actually have to be intelligent to some extent, at least in biology, right? You can watch a video online, kind of like I did, right? I taught myself how to do websites, and then I started doing it for other people. There were no certifications, or like I didn't have to go to college for that, like so in some way, like I appreciate that because it has created a lot of jobs and it has created a lot of new businesses. But at the same time, it makes our industry just completely wide open to people who are chasing shiny objects.
Mm,
Because how many of us have bought a course at one point in time, or people that have bought a course that was the get rich quick scheme to start a marketing agency, right? Take
sure.
this course and you'll be a millionaire tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. Those people create those courses because they know that that many of the folks that gravitate towards starting a marketing agency have low discipline and are shiny object chasers.
Mm,
And so I think it's important that the agency owners that are out there recognize that there are many, many shady ass people out there that are trying to take advantage of you.
yeah.
And you need to have the discipline to stay focused and execute on what is realistic. Like if it sounds too good to be true, I promise you it is, especially in this industry, right? So if you're an agency owner, you need to, I mean, it kind of pisses me off. That's why I wanted to talk about it. I can't stand when people try to take advantage of other people. I hate
Yeah.
bullies and I can't stand when people try and take advantage of you. So if there's somebody out there, some shady ass person that's selling some get rich quick scheme, millionaire overnight internet marketing, digital marketing agency program. Do not buy it. You have to have
You're
the
not.
discipline to know that this is bullshit. Like, stay away. So, yeah, I just had to go on that little rant. I've never
Yeah,
mentioned
I
this
think I
before, either.
I I could tell that one was bundled up in you for a while.
Oh, yeah.
No, man, but I think it's great that we talked about it, and actually, it's a really interesting point. I never thought about how that's probably why there are so many shiny object features in our space because they were like, that's who was targeted by all these ads, right?
Unfortunately, digital marketing or the agency world has become a biz op, right? So like
Yeah,
in the I would say the late 2010s, that's when you really started to see an explosion of people. I won't name who they are, but I know all of them and they're dicks. But there are people who just recognize I can make a ton of money selling these courses, teaching people this new biz op thing. And it's all bullshit. And but everybody wants to, become an overnight millionaire. And there are a few people, not to say that these people were selling stuff that doesn't work. There are some people that become successful learning the stuff, but the overwhelming majority of them never ever have. Well, this is the brutal honesty. A lot of them don't have what it takes to run a successful business, but they're still buying the courses, right? They're still
yeah,
buying those shiny objects. So, yeah, ever since I saw that, it just really, really bothered me. It just don't,
yeah.
it's unethical, man. Like, I personally believe that how you make your money is way more important than how much money you have.
For sure. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that too. I mean, at the end of the day, like there's a point where money is not going to motivate you much more once you hit your financial goals, and then it's kind of down to like feeling good about what you do and impact and feeling some kind of purpose or like you're contributing, right? Like we've all felt that, right? If it's just a monetary goals like that, yeah, there needs to be something more, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So then on the flip side of that though, so you mentioned that the people who aren't like that, the people who are very successful, are very disciplined.
Mhm.
What else comes to mind? From the agencies
Oh,
making millions that are really profitable. What are those common traits or like ways of operating they
yeah.
have?
So I'll give you the other one that is kind of shocking to a lot of people. They all have great personal credit, which is really, really interesting. I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah, it ties in with
So
discipline, right? Yeah.
ties with discipline and ties with wanting to know about the numbers. Like
Mm,
the reason why we have credit scores is because they're in the United States. In other countries, it's a little bit different, but it is a key indicator that you'll be able to repay a loan, right? So, like if you go to buy a house or a car, and I bought a house here in San Diego last year, they will look at your credit score and determine how likely is it that this person is going to be able to repay the loan back. I just got a car actually like a few months ago too. And I've had bad credit, just so you know. Like I did not grow up with any type of financial education. I had to learn this on my own. And in college, I was stupid and I got all these credit cards, like when you're walking around camp. Did you go to college, by the way?
yeah.
When you
I
walk
dropped
around
out, but
campus,
yeah.
when you
There
walk
for a
around
few years.
campus and they have these booths and they're like, sign up for this credit card. And it's like, horrible credit card. I was
Right.
stupid and I did that and I ran up a bunch of debt and eventually had to pay all that stuff back and it was really, really stupid. And so eventually I learned, hey, what is this credit thing? And so I taught myself and now I have great credit.
Yeah.
And we see a direct correlation between somebody's personal credit score and their financial success in the business. Just because you have great credit does not mean that you'll build a successful agency.
Mm.
But every person who has a financially successful agency has great credit. And if I ask them what's your credit score, they can send it to me instantly. That's how I tested it. I was like, hey, dude,
Yeah.
like just out of curiosity, what's your credit score? They just send me a screenshot of what it is. They're
Yeah.
monitoring it constantly. So if you want to have a very good shot at running a financially successful, multi-seven-figure, very, very profitable business that runs without you, that's definitely one thing that you can control
Mm.
is work on building up your personal credit. If you don't have good credit, if you didn't get an education on that like I did, educate yourself and get good at it. That will absolutely help you in running a
Yeah.
business.
Definitely a surprising answer set, but it makes perfect sense. And by
Nobody
the
ever
way,
talks about that.
yeah, definitely not. It's so predatory, by the way, just the idea of credit card companies going on college campuses. Like how scammy can you get, right?
Oh, dude. Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, I made that dumb decision. Like, I went up to the booth, even though I didn't know what it was. I made the dumb decision and I signed the thing, knowing that I was going to get a credit card in exchange for, I don't even know what like movie passes or something dumb. Like, I can't really blame anybody else for that dumb decision. But yes, it would have been better if they weren't allowed on campus.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, you mentioned this also at the beginning of the call that the ability to run the business by the numbers helped you a lot, and just being financially savvy. I know for me for sure, like I was also not really taught this growing up, and felt
Hmm.
like it was always a weakness in my business. And I think it's the case for a lot of agency owners, right? So what are some of the biggest things that helped you there when you made that shift, or like what do you normally recommend someone when they're just trying to get more running their business by the numbers?
100%. So the number one reason why there's 6 reasons why an agency is not doing well financially. The number one most common is the cost of goods. So how much you spend to get your deliverables or your product out the door. That should be 30% of the revenue. So if you sell something for $1,000 a month, you need to be able to get that thing out the door, delivered to your clients with results for 30% or $300.
Mm,
So let's just think about this more practically. So let's just say you sell for 1,000, your target is $300. Let's say you have an employee who's $10 an hour. That means that that employee can work for 30 hours on that client's work. If it exceeds 30 hours, we're not going to be we're going to be in trouble, right?
yeah,
So
and
when
just oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was going to say something, but you go first.
I was gonna say, so to clarify for anyone who doesn't know the difference, cost of goods, not all of their costs, not all of their expense for the business, just specifically the cost to deliver the service, right? So like
Yeah,
the
so your cost of goods is primarily going to be the production labor who's doing the work. Now, if
yeah,
you're doing it, you should assign a hourly rate for yourself
hopefully
because
higher
it's
than
not
$10.
like it's not
Yeah.
like you're free, right?
Yeah.
So that's the production labor costs. Typically, it's going to include any software as well. And I like to consider credit card processing fees as a cost of goods expense as well. And that
Mm,
2.9%, that adds up over time, especially when you start doing millions in revenue and you look and you're like, fuck, I paid these fuckers like 60 grand.
mm,
That sucks. Yeah. So that's the biggest one, is that your cost of goods is too high. So one of the things that you got to do to be able to track that is time tracking. 100% you have to be time tracking. That's the only way that you'll know how much you're actually spending to get those projects out the door. You can look at the global and just say like, okay, well, these are all my labor people and this is how much they all cost me and this is my revenue. And it's, 30%. And I'm good. That's okay. However, I want you to be able to answer the question, how much revenue and what's your gross margin and your cost of goods for every single product that you offer? So if you have a package A, package B, package C, I want to know how profitable you are for each one of those. And then the next question is, I want to know how profitable you are on every single customer.
mm.
Every single customer that you have, I want to know how much they pay you and how much you make. Gross margin. What are you spending? What are you making? I want to know that answer. You have to know those numbers. There's a saying like, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. You have to know those numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
So
So
yeah,
that's
so that's like the most important one, is you got to know your cost of goods sold.
yeah, and it should be really under 30%. What are the other numbers? You said there's six key things you noticed?
Yes. So the next thing that we look at is, I would just say, I'm trying to go in order of importance. I'm going to say churn rate. So churn rate is the next one. If you have a churn rate that's over 3% per month, and let's calculate that. So if you have 100 customers and in that month you lose 3, that means your churn rate is 3%.
Mm,
Okay. I don't care how many you bring in. It's all about how many you have at the beginning of the month and how many of those you lose. So your churn
yeah.
rate, you need to shoot for 3% or less per month. If you have a high churn rate, it typically means that you don't have a very good and I know that that might be hard to hear, but in the marketing space, let's be very, very clear as to what it is that we do. Businesses hire us to help them make more money. It's very, very simple. AJ, they pay you to get them leads, right? So if I give you $2,000 for the month and I don't get any leads, or I would say actually, if none of those leads turn into customers, I'm going to cancel, right?
Yeah.
Any marketing agency out there, I don't care what it is that you're selling. It could be branding, it can be email, it can be whatever, podcasting, I don't care. If you're in marketing, you are in the business of making your customers more money. On the flip side, that's why selling marketing agency stuff is very simple if you have like a good product. So if the clients are paying you this money and you're not helping them to generate more leads and more revenue, then the product is not very good.
Mm,
And so what we need to do is we need to look at, why is this happening? Now, the product might also not be good. Maybe you're getting them results, maybe you're getting them leads and they're closing deals, but maybe you're not managing the relationships very well. Maybe
right.
they don't know that you care about them.
Mm,
Maybe you're not sending them the reporting or reviewing the reporting with them to show them the ROI. Because if you just expect them to look at the numbers in the email that you send every month, that ain't going to happen. They're busy.
yeah, definitely not.
You need to have a team that will actually manage those relationships and make sure that the client sees how unbelievably invaluable you are to their business. So that is an aspect of the product. I had a client that came to me and he's like, "Oh, well, like our results for our clients are kind of like the same as everybody else, but our relationships are amazing." I'm like, "Dude, that is a huge benefit. That is a big selling point in the product. That's a massive competitive advantage that you know
Mm,
how to manage the relationships very well with the clients and that they trust you. Don't de-emphasize that in your sales process." So
mm,
that's the second one that I'll look at, just to summarize, is the churn rate, right? If it's way over 3%, we got massive product problems, right? Like if it's 7%, 8%, we really have to dive into the product and figure out why is the product not delivering to the clients, and we're not fulfilling on the promise that we made to them when we did the sales process. I would say the next one that I'll look at is inconsistent sales. And this kind of ties into the product itself. So if your sales are going up and down and up and down, it's very, very hard to grow the business that way. It's very hard to manage like your expenses as well as the utilization of the team. And so I would much rather see peaks instead of peaks and valleys in sales. I would just rather see slow and steady wins the race. Like
yeah.
let's shoot for 3, 4 every single month, as opposed to 12 and then nothing for like 4 months. It's just easier to manage that. So that's what I'll look at too, is the sales consistency. So I'll look at that. The next one I'll look at is pricing. Are we pricing too low, or are we pricing too high? I'll have to look at your COGS, for example. So like if your COGS are too high and there's just no way possible to get them lower, you have to raise prices. That's the only way to do it. And then I'll look at your operating expenses. Now, typically, so this is like your overhead. Typically,
Mm,
we don't have a lot of problems there because agency owners are notoriously frugal. But if we do have a problem, it's usually we have an expense that's like way too high, like a rent payment that's like stupidly high that we need to get out of. Maybe it's an employee that is just getting paid too much. We thought that we would bring them on and pay them a bunch of money and they would help to transform the business, and it just hasn't happened. Maybe you're paying yourself too much, right? And it's stifling your growth. That can happen as well. And then the last thing that I'll look at is leadership team. So eventually the business gets to a certain size and there's just too many decisions that need to be made, and there's just not enough time for you to be able to do that. In that instance, you have to build out a leadership team that oversees a specific department: operations, account management or customer experience, marketing and sales, finance, HR. And that person helps to run that department like it's their own business, and they basically make the decisions, and then you as the agency owner kind of just follow their lead on their respective department. So I think
yeah.
those are the 6. I think I covered all 6.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and when would you say it's the right time to build that leadership team? When there's at least one person in each core function, or how do you help people make that transition?
No, I mean, usually you'll start with operations and fulfillment. And
Yeah.
so you'll have, maybe like a team of like 7, 8, 9 people in that department. And it just becomes too much for you to be able to manage.
Yeah.
Typically, we build out the leadership team, at least in that department, right around 500,000 in revenue. That's kind of
Mm,
around the size ballpark, more or less, where we'll start to bring in that first seat.
yeah.
But definitely by the time you get to 1 million in revenue, you need at least 2 people in there. And I usually go with operations first, right? Because we got to get the owner out of fulfillment. And then I go with what we call customer experience, or other people might call it customer success or account management, head of account management. That usually goes second. So it'll go operations in that seat.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. You also mentioned that the inconsistent sales was due to the product often. How did you mean by that?
The product not delivering, right? So like
Yeah.
again, remember, we're in the business of making money for our clients.
Mm,
And if we're not making money for our clients, well then that is going to get around. Like people will talk and like they're like, "Oh, I gave Chris all this money and it didn't, do anything," or like
right.
the leads were crap. That's what they always love to say.
Yeah.
And so that is a product issue, and that will absolutely impact sales growth.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Also, when you mentioned the 5 stages, that's awesome. We got to have you come back on the podcast just to break down those 5 stages, because I think there's so much we could
Sure.
talk about there. There was one thing you touched on though. You said that at each stage you have to be the agency owner that you would need
Mhm.
to be at the next stage. Can you explain what you mean by that? Because I think
Yeah.
it's really important.
So there's a quote that I love. I don't know where I heard it from. Maybe I made it up. I don't know. But essentially, entrepreneurs in general, but marketing agency owners love to say, "What do I need to do next?" Right? I was just in a mastermind last week, and this gal's like, "What do I need to do next?" Like she said specifically, like, "I'm not good at delegating." Right? What do I need to do next? And people need to stop asking, "What do I need to do next?" And they need to start asking, "Who do I need to become?"
Mm,
Because the business ultimately is a reflection of you. If
right.
you are undisciplined, the business will be undisciplined. If you are not on time, the business will not be on time and you will not hit deadlines. it is directly correlated to you.
Mm.
So that's why agency owners, and this is maybe like the most woo-woo thing that I ever talk about. Agency owners need to constantly be working on themselves and
Mm.
figuring out how to improve themselves so that the business can also improve.
Mm.
So when it comes to, wait, hold on. What was your original question? Sorry, I got sidetracked all of a sudden.
What you meant by like how you have to build the agency that you don't have
Oh,
yet.
yes. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, like you need to, if you want to get to the next level, you need to figure out what would somebody at $1 million agency know how to do, and then try and close that skill gap, right? So somebody
Yeah.
at, I'll just use a $5 million agency because it's a little bit easier. If you're at $500,000 right now, and you want to get to $5 million, what do you think somebody at $5 million knows how to do? I guarantee you they know how to run their numbers. I guarantee you that if you ask them what their gross margin is, they know what it is.
Mm.
I guarantee you they know how to build out a team and manage a team. I guarantee you they know how to build out SOPs. I guarantee you they have a pretty good product,
Yeah.
right? I guarantee you they know how to manage relationships with customers. They know how to market themselves. They know how to market the business. They know lead generation. So
Mm.
you just look at where you want to go, and then you say, okay, so somebody at that level, if you don't know, you ask me, reach out to me, and I'll tell you. If you want to get to a certain level, you have to figure out what do I need to be able to do to get to that level. I'll use a sports analogy because I like using sports analogies. Do you think that somebody who goes and is a quarterback in the NFL, do you think I see that quarterback and they're like, oh, he looks like he has a lot of potential. Let's put him in there and see how he does.
No, definitely not.
Absolutely not. They do not do that. He essentially earns his spot on the team before he gets on the team.
Right.
Hours and hours in the weight room, tens of thousands of hours practicing, right? From a very, very young age. And so you earn your spot on the team before they actually hand you the jersey. That's the same approach that you have to have as a marketing agency owner. You level up your skills before you have the revenue and the team and the profit and all that stuff, right? You become that person before you actually have it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the analogy is perfect. And yeah, it's almost like the business catches up to who you are. Like it's lacking behind you. Right?
100%. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, man. So let's talk about some exit stuff for the last 10 minutes here or so. So
Sure.
so those are some of the biggest things that have helped you kind of professionalize the business more. I know that we were talking before the podcast started about how like just the different mindset shift to build a business that you exit. Like it's really building a legitimate business versus just where a lot of agencies are, which is really like a freelancer.
Yeah.
So I want to hear your thoughts on that. And then also like, what does it look like to have an 8-figure exit? Like what kind of revenue or profit does someone need to be doing?
Yeah, I'll answer
get
that
to
one
that?
first. It's very, very simple. 5.5 million revenue, 30% EBITDA, you will sell for 8 figures, especially if you're niched.
Yeah. So obviously a niche agency is worth a lot more than a generalist agency.
Typically, yes. It can vary. Like if you have some very high profile clients and there's a strategic buyer that wants to come in and buy you, maybe it doesn't matter that much. But typically, yes. So 5.5 million, 30% EBITDA, you will sell for 8 figures, right? It's pretty simple. That multiple is very easy to hit. Of course, how do you get there? That's the bigger question. So
Yeah.
if you want to sell your business, the first thing that I would say is like, have the mindset that you want to build a business that you can sell. If you're just happy running a solopreneur type of business and you don't have processes, maybe you have some contractors, that's okay. That is not a sellable business. Just recognize that you have a lifestyle business and that's what you want. If you want to build a sellable business, essentially it has to run without you. So you just have to set your mind or you have to acknowledge in your mind that I'm building something that is an asset that I can sell one day. That's the first step. All the clients that we work with, they want to sell the business one. We ask them that question. If they never want to sell the business, we aren't going to work with them because there will be mental roadblocks. They're like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, what's the point?
Right.
It isn't going to work out. So make sure that you have in your mind that you actually want to sell the business. Next thing is the numbers. You have to know the numbers. The first and the last thing that somebody's going to look at when they want to buy your business is the numbers. They're going to look at your net income and your EBITDA, which are typically fairly the same in our business. So you have to have strong EBITDA, like strong net profit. And a lot of agency owners think incorrectly that, okay, the business does, $1 million a year in revenue, then, I have $300,000 a year in profit and after all expenses are paid except for themselves, and they'll take money from the net and that'll be their salary. And so a buyer is going to look at that and they're going to call you on it. They're going to be like, whoa, like you're telling me that it's 300 grand, but that's your salary. For me to hire somebody, because you have to think like an investor, like they're not going to want to run the business themselves. They're
course,
going to
yeah.
want to have an operator. They're like, for me to replace you, that person's going to be like 250K. So your profit is really 50 grand and your
Right.
business is now worth maybe 200,000 bucks.
Yeah.
Right. It sucks to hear that, but that's what you have to keep in mind is so like, I want to see 30% after all expenses are paid, including yourself.
Mm.
That's what I want to see. And actually, what's even better is if you're paying yourself more of a salary, and then you have what's called add backs. So let's just say you're doing $1 million a year in revenue. Your salary is 400,000, and then after that, you still have 30%. Well, then we can say, okay, to replace you, that person's going to be 250 grand. So now that extra 150 grand from my salary, that's an add back. So now our net goes up and you're going to get a bigger multiple on that number. So that's really important. You have to, at the very least, if you're looking at or if you're hearing this and you're not good at numbers, right? Like I'm a sociology major, by the way. I didn't go to school for finance. If you're not good at the numbers, get a bookkeeper. Get a bookkeeper to run your numbers. You should be looking at your numbers every single week, at the very least every single month, right? So get a bookkeeper to run these numbers for you. It'll pay off, and it's not that expensive anymore. It's like $200 a month, or maybe $150 a month. You can get a bookkeeper.
Yeah, cheap for sure. You don't need to do
Cheap,
that yourself. Yeah.
exactly. So get that, and then you can know your numbers. That is incredibly important. I spoke to an agency owner last month. Was it last month or a couple weeks ago? And this dude just did not know his numbers at all. And he thought that somebody would just buy the business because he thought it was awesome. And I'm like, hey, I hate to break it to you, man. Like, this is not a sellable business. I
Yeah.
think he was doing like 700 grand a year. No, I take it back. He didn't even know that last year he did $1 million in revenue. I think he did like 1.1 in revenue. And I'm like, can you show me your P&L from last year? And he's like, oh, I don't know where it is. Eventually he found it on the call. He's like, oh, it looks like I did 1.1. I'm like, dude, how do you not know this? But then he had no profit. Right. So the business wasn't worth very much. And, hopefully he figures it out. But as soon as you start taking that seriously, then you'll get a lot more clarity as to what decisions you need to make. And I'll give you one more thing, is like when you're building this business that you want to sell, you have to make your decisions strategically. You have to make decisions based on facts and not feelings. If you just go through life running everything on gut instinct, I promise you, your gut is going to lead you down the wrong path.
Yeah.
So you need to look at the numbers and then decide what's the next strategic decision that we need to make. Don't just show up and wing it. Facts, not feelings, when you're making decisions in the business, decisions about people, decisions about marketing, decisions about product, all of that. Facts, not feelings.
Yeah, and it really is like an identity change, right? Because in the beginning, you kind of get away with winging it, right? When you're getting the business off the ground just with pure hustle and energy, right? But it's definitely just a complete, it's a mindset shift for sure. But no, I love that you kind of paint the picture of what numbers it takes to achieve that because it makes it easier for people to look at, okay, here's my goal. I need to get to here if I want to do this. And first, do I even want to do this, right? It is a decision and a mindset shift. And maybe not everyone wants to sell, right? Maybe people are happy with just a small business, solopreneur, contractors, and that's
and
totally
that's
fine.
totally okay. That's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Just be honest with yourself.
Yeah. For sure. Awesome, man. Well, wrapping up, where can people find you? And then also you want to talk a little bit about the event you have going on in December?
Yeah, for sure. So you can go to our website, bloompartners.io, and then our Instagram, we post a lot of stuff on there, which is also bloompartners.io. And then the biggest, most exciting thing that we have that I wish you were coming to, but I know you have another engagement, is we have our big event coming up in San Diego called Agency Freedom Live. It's December 5th through the 7th. And you can go to agencyfreedomlive.com. And we still have, it's not the early bird. I think we have the early bird tickets are on sale right now. It's 3 days long. If you buy the VIP though, you'll get a bonus mastermind day on the 4th. But here's the breakdown. So like on the 5th, we're going to talk all about planning. You're going to have all your budgets, everything for going into 2025. It'll show you exactly what you need to do, exactly who you need to have. And then on day 2, we're going to be talking about lead generation and sales, and then also cost cutting and AI and how we can leverage that to reduce our expenses. And day 3 is all about people and leadership. So if you want to learn how to grow your business in 2025, we're breaking it all down, giving it to you. And I think the most exciting part about this event is it's not a lecture style event. Every single speaker that I bring in, every single session that we have, you'll be working with other people in the room and actually getting stuff done. So I told all the speakers, I was like, don't just lecture at them for an hour, right? Like we are going to be having them go through exercises in small groups so that they walk away with actionable stuff that they can start implementing that night if they want to. So go to Agency Freedom Live. You can grab your ticket. I promise you it's going to be an amazing event. San Diego's not a bad place to be in December, especially when you're freezing your butt off in the rest of the country. Come out to the West Coast and have some fun.
Beautiful place to be. Well, yeah, I'm bummed that I had another engagement booked for those dates. Otherwise, I'll definitely be there. I'll definitely join next year. But everyone listening, I recommend you check it out and go. Chris has built a really awesome community, and obviously from today, you can tell he knows the stuff and can really help you out. So we'll put a link below. He was also generous enough to give another additional discount, 10% off to our community, our podcast listeners. So we'll put a link down below, and you guys can get sorted if you want to hang out in December. But yeah, man, this is great. We got to have you back sometime. I really enjoyed the conversation. So appreciate you coming on and sharing all that you've learned.
All right. Thanks, AJ. Thanks everybody for listening.